everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I am your host, Olivia Akin. Each week we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today we are speaking with actress Kathe Mazur. Kathe Mazur, an accomplished American actress whose career spans 2 decades in film and television. Kathe is best known for her 9-season portrayal of Deputy District Attorney Andrea Hobbs on the critically acclaimed TNT series The Closer and Major Crimes, establishing herself as one of television's most recognized legal professionals. Her film work includes a memorable role in Clint Eastwood's American Sniper, and her television credits span major network with appearances on NCIS, Criminal Minds, House, Castle, and The Mentalist, among so many others, including her voice work that she does. Born in Providence, Rhode Island, Kathe has built a reputation for bringing depth and authenticity to every character she portrays, whether in procedural dramas, feature films, or guest starring roles across television's most respected series. Hello, Kathe. It's fantastic having you on the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited because for so many different reasons, and even the conversation we were getting deep into right before this recording, but I was so excited prepping for this as well because seeing your credits and I know who you are, but I'm like, this is every show I've watched 4,000 times over and over. I'm like, this is going to be the best because I love it when people do their research on things, as we were also talking about, because you were prepping before this, and I was like, I can actually speak to a perspective of understanding the work she's done and the portrayal she made. So I'm so excited for all the places we're going to go in this conversation. But to start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Kathe Mazur?
Well, as you were saying, I had done all this prep work and then didn't get a chance to look at my notes. So now I'm going to be winging it. What does success look like? Okay. Very, 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 very specifically, success means to what degree I am freed up to bringing the best of my own work. That is what success means to me. That is the only thing. So if I did the biggest movie in the world, but I was uptight and I wasn't happy with the way that I showed up, or I wasn't happy with the way I behaved either as a person or as an actor, then that would be a big fail for me and I would feel crappy about it. And by the same token, I can do the tiniest little thing, including auditions. And if I like what I did, it's a great day. It's a successful day. So it literally has no other meaning. I was raised in a house of artists. My father was a painter and my mother's a poet. And these are professions that people don't make a lot of money. These are, and they're also very self-motivated professions, right? So you go out, what they did very different from what I do is they would go in their studio or go in their office and do their work every day. So what I knew about creating was you have a good day when you've created well, and it's a bad day when you haven't. And then my father took it further, and he said something that I think about all the time, which is there's no such thing as a bad day in the studio. And what he meant was, he said, you go out to the studio and nothing is working and everything feels like a big failure and you don't like your work and you don't like what you're doing. And the next day you go out, or a week later you go out and you have a great day. And he said, you have no way of knowing that that good day isn't a direct result of that bad day a week before. So you can't write it off. There's no such thing as a bad day in the studio. And that kind of is the definition to me of success, is to approach the work you do like there's no such thing as a bad day in the studio.
And I think it's so important that you brought that up. And I love that's what you follow, because I think sometimes when we're in the thick of it, right? And we were talking about stress before this and all those stressors. And when you were saying that, that was also coming to my mind of when we're in the thick of it, all we can sometimes see is the bad, the noise that's around, right? And all
That's right.
these things. But to your point, those moments create clarity and direction. So when the work pays off, right, that all the pieces fit together, it's like, oh yeah, this is amazing. This is what I meant to be doing, or how it's supposed to be played up. But I think there's so much that shapes that. And you need those bad days.
Yeah.
You
And
need
the
those.
and a great day, right? It's the result of hundreds of failures, like hundreds of failures go into every single great day. So if that's true, how can they be failures? How can we, what I think of failure, what do they say? That kind of what is it? The origin of the word sin or something has to do with missing the mark. It's like shooting an arrow and missing the mark. And there's something about the failure, being able to talk about failure in a really wonderful, fun way. Like have some lightness about that. Have some lightness about I remember I did a series. I used to do a lot of sitcom work before I did dramatic work. And I did a short-lived sitcom with Christopher Maloney. And we became very good friends and we loved working together. And I loved working with him because uh, anything that was going wrong, he always gave a solution as well. So if he said this isn't working, he'd go, "What if I did this?" And I learned a lot. This was a long time ago, and I learned a lot from watching him. But the other thing I learned from him was after we finished that series, which was called Misery Loves Company. After we finished that series, he went and he got another job. This was before SVU.
Mhm.
And he called me up and he read me all his bad reviews. And he was laughing and he was going, "Christopher Maloney, incredibly unsexy and uncharismatic." Like he was reading me these things, and all I could think is, this guy's going to be a major star because that's the attitude, right? Like not only is he not being killed off by this failure, right? Failure didn't go, he got terrible reviews, but he's using it to make something else today. He's using it to make fun. He's using it for us to have a good laugh. He's taking things in, but he's not taking himself too seriously. And I'd never seen anyone do that before. And when I started doing audiobooks, we used to get this was before Audible. And so that where we would get like reader reviews was on the can't even remember like the website, like the Books on Tape website. And we would read each other our terrible reviews. And we would just laugh and laugh and laugh. And we'd have like a bunch of readers together going like, oh wait, listen to what they said about me. And that has been an extraordinary lesson that you really don't, people don't do that when they're tight. They don't do that when they're holding on. You've got to be willing to go, look, the review happened. It's a thing they said. It's out there. I can either go blah, 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 or I can go, okay, now I've heard this good thing and I've heard this bad thing. And so none of it matters, right? Like the bad doesn't matter if you're making fun of it. I don't know if that's an answer to your question.
No, it is. And what I really heard you saying that too is you give weight to what you want to give weight to. So if you want to give weight to
Yeah.
the stress, the bad review, the negative things being said online, then that grip will be tight on you. And
It has you in its hold, like you said.
yeah. But if you don't and you laugh it off and you practice that, it doesn't have that hold. For you, how how do you continue to practice not letting the noise of the industry, the noise of the reviews, whatever it might be, get a hold of you?
I learned somewhere along the way that, for instance, if I'm in an audition, I can either use all the real feelings that I'm having and find a way to use them creatively, or I can try to ignore all of my feelings and replace them with a bunch of feelings I would rather have. And I learned at some point that for me, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't work. It's like if I've got all this juice that's based on my terror or based on my feeling of rejection or based on my feeling like I'm a terrible person or whatever's going wrong, that's actually just juice. And I can do things like say, okay, this character feels that way too, but she doesn't want anyone to know it. Or I could say that character feels that way too, and she's going to use it to make this person feel guilty. Or I can do something with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't, for me, everybody has a different way of working. For me, I don't have the choice to decide to ignore what I'm really feeling and choose an entire different set of feelings and fake them. Some people are great at that. God bless. My juice is what's happening to me. And so on a certain level, there's nothing to reject or there's nothing to hold off. Nothing can hurt you if it's all useful. So I remember being in a class once and a teacher who I just loved and admired. And I was doing my first scene for him. And when I walked in, he thought that like the thing I was wearing was stupid, something. And he goes, take that off, go take that headdress off or whatever. Like, who do you think you are? And he was kind of making fun of me. And he goes, go and come back in. And I felt like I felt like my world was crushing down right on me. And I remember thinking, you can either take all this and just fucking, sorry, use it, or you can crumble. And those are your choices. And that was the moment where a lot of things changed for me because when I started again, I was so consolidated. It was like there was nothing to be afraid of. And I was able to go like, okay, here's what I want to do. And that was where my thinking really changed about what it is that creativity is for me and the best way for me to use, I remember being on a set once and it was just a hard day. It was a day when my child was dying. Anybody who's ever done a lot of procedurals, not as the professionals, but as the victims or the victims' mothers or wives, you're just constantly crying. You're constantly upset. I used to have this joke. I used to read a lot for ER and NYPD Blue. And there was all these auditions and you'd either go to ER or NYPD Blue. And I said to my agent, it's the same audition. It's just that in ER, your child is dying and NYPD Blue, your child is dead. That's the only difference. But the rest of it, because there is this category and we all watch them all the time. They're expositional. They don't have any life outside of their grief. And you're not, if you tried to bring in life outside of your grief, it would overwhelm it. You're there to be a grief
Mm-hmm.
anchor, right? It's the job. And I remember there was one time I was doing something and I just was tired. I was just tired of all of that grief. And I started to talk to myself. And I said, I just want to go home. I don't want to do this again. And then I said, okay, I get it. You're going to go home soon. Just do it one more time. I knew I was going to do it 30 more times. But I said, just do it one more time. Just get to one more time. And that kindness of going, you're allowed to also hate this. You're allowed to want to leave. You're allowed to hate the actor you're working with. You're allowed to not want to kiss them. You're allowed to have every single feeling you have. And how are you going to use that
Mhm.
to stay present and stay having a bit of humor and humanity for yourself, instead of going, you're messing up, you're messing up, you're not supposed to, you should be grateful, whatever the crazy voices are. Even that would be like, you should be grateful. Oh, okay. So now I'm beating myself up. What do I want to do about that? Maybe I want to turn that on the actor I'm working with because I'm angry at them, and I'll pretend they're me and I'll talk to them. It's all there, like in the moment.
Mhm.
And you do all the homework, you do all the preparation that then you forget to look at. You do all the homework, but then when you're in the moment, you're going to have one feeling at a time, and you don't get to decide what that feeling is, no matter how much you may want it to be different. And again, there are extraordinary actors that could hear me say this and go, just, are you kidding me? I just decide what feeling I want to have, and then I have it. And that's wonderful. That's not the way I function.
And it's a pure example as well that in life, no two people are the same. The way you show up, what your experiences are that day, every little piece of your day, your life, your experiences shape who you are in that moment and moving forward. And I
That's
say
right.
that a lot with podcasting as well when people ask me about like podcasting advice and as a guest or a host. And I'm like, the mistake a lot of people assume is that what works over here for this podcast and this host is a blueprint and 100% template that as long as you do every single step correctly, you are then going to emulate and have the same exact success. And now you've just shortened that runway significantly. And
Why
that's what
can't you
also,
just do that? Just do what that person does.
yeah, and that's what gets me in general too. I've recently coined the term everyone's selling a golden ticket on social media right now of like, hey, just do these 5 steps and then you can make 7 figures. And if you just do this, and I'm like, no, because no two people are exactly the same. No two experiences. And even going through that, it made me think of like how I try to give myself the space and observance of like yourself. I have to be able to live in the moment of like what I'm feeling. And 9 times out of 10, it's gonna feel me. I joke that I love when people tell me you can't do that or that's not gonna work, and I'm like, yeah, now watch me, like watch it happen. And I'm like, yeah, it's a great feeling to then be able to like be like, that's your challenge. Now I'm gonna do it and watch me do it better than you ever thought, and then accomplish that goal. But it's also like in moments of the day where it's like, for example, when my boyfriend is underway in the U.S. Coast Guard, I leave my phone on, which I'll tell you, I have a golden rule in recordings: don't have your phone on. And like a day like today, when he's underway, I'm like, that thing stays on in the corner, right? And
That's right.
I will see. And in a recording before this, I saw it like light up with his name, and I'm like, oh my god! And I'm trying to be present. And I'm like, don't look at it, don't look at it, just wait, just wait. And I was like, okay, can I nonchalantly grab it and just look? Because then I can go back to focusing as long as I know.
That's right. That's right.
And
And people are actually great, right? Like, as long as your goal is to be present, the things you have to do to be present are are things we love, right? Like if somebody said to me, I really want to talk to you. I'm so sorry. I got to go take this work thing. 5 minutes, I'm going to be back. That's taken care of me. That's fine. You can go off and make that phone call. If somebody's spending 50% of their energy, 50% of their time going back and forth, then I'm going to be like, but whatever it takes us to, my son can break through on my phone anytime. because he's my son. Like he doesn't call a lot. So if he needs to call, it's always because he needs something. So he can break through. If I'm in the theater, I have to turn the phone totally off because he could break through at any time. My rule about being able to, like, my husband can break through, I'm pretty sure. And the reason that is, or no, he can't break through, but I never, what's the word? I never send him to voicemail. I never, what's the word? What's the word when you decide not to take a call, when you,
Oh, like you never, why am I blanking on this word?
yeah, like what is that word?
When you ignore the phone call?
Yeah, when you ignore the phone call. Yeah. Like, okay, so I won't ignore the phone call. And this is to bring down the room, but it was because of 9/11, because people called and went to voicemail. And I'm sure that that's something that was very hard for their loved ones to. Now, in some ways, it meant that they could preserve their voice and that last call, but you wished that you had answered so you could tell them you love them and say goodbye. So since we never know what's going on with somebody, I can't ever decide that my husband's call is not worth taking or my son's call isn't worth taking. And 99.9% of the time, it's not worth taking. Like, fine, and then you just go, can't talk to you now. But I just need to know that this isn't like a distress call or you're in the hospital and I'm like going,
yeah. Well, that even made me think, in my house growing up, we had a rule, right? Because both of my parents are in the medical field. My dad is an anesthesiologist. He's been director of multiple hospitals. My mom is a oncology social worker. She works with people all day who are dying and
amazing.
Their families. And so we always knew, right? Growing up, they both worked. They're on call 24 hours a day, right? There's no getting kind of away from that. And my parents even, I remember talking about 9/11 when 9/11 hit. My parents were at work. My mom actually dropped off at school. I was in first grade. My sister was in kindergarten. And we were close with the kindergarten teacher. And when that first plane hit, the teacher called my mom, the kindergarten teacher. My sister was in kindergarten, and said, come get the kids. Like, we're about to get on lockdown. If you could get here in like the next 15 minutes.
Because where were you?
I was in New Jersey at the time.
Right.
So South Jersey. And so my mom came and picked us up. My mom grew up in Connecticut. My dad grew up in New York, in Long Island. And his family's business was in Manhattan. So we came, and my parents knew people who were in the Twin Towers. And it happened, and then my dad got us in the car and drove us to Long Island. And then me and my sisters, my mom came and went. We're at my Nana and Pop's house for a few days. My parents then went to the 9/11 site and helped. And I mean, I was so young then, like, we weren't calling people, but ever since that, using that as a standalone point, my parents had a rule. If you need to get in touch with us, you call and we'll pick up. If for some reason we don't call a second time, and it doesn't matter, they will pick up. So I have called my parents with amazing life news. I remember when I got the call that I became the youngest intern to intern at the New York Giants, and like life-altering moment. And I called both of them. They were
so
both
fantastic.
And they're like, "Are you okay?" And like, my dad's literally in the OR, and I'm on speaker because it could only pipe through. And my mom's like, "I'm with the patient. Is everything okay?" And I'm like, I got the intern. And they start screaming, you hear the room erupt. And there's also times where I remember when I got hit, I was in my car driving and I got badly hit from behind. And I called my parents and I was like, I just got hit like this and that. And they're like, luckily that was the day they were not working. I'm just using it as an example. And my dad, mom were at a mall and they were apart. And my dad was like, we'll be there in 10 minutes. And they were 20 minutes away. Okay. So there was
Yeah.
definitely some speeding that happened. And he ran to my mom and he was like, we gotta go. Stop what you're doing. We gotta go. And she's like, what's going on? And he's like, Olivia's been in an accident. We gotta go. And it was dropped and we're there. So, like, even now that all their kids are grown, we have a rule. Like, if my parents text me, they'll be like, if it's not important, they'll be like, hey, can you talk right now?
Right.
Or, just text about whatever. If it is something more of importance, like something has happened within the family, whatever might be happening, they'll call and they'll be like, you need to pick up the phone. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And same vice
Yeah.
versa. Like, I called
Yeah.
my dad the other day and he picked up. He goes, you good? I'm about to roll into the ER. You good? And I'm like, oh yeah, just call me later. But he's like, you never, in our family, you don't miss a phone call. You don't miss a text. And we tell each other, like, this is what my day looks like. Like last night, I had to run
Mm-hmm.
through with my boyfriend and my parents. Like, I have 4 hours of recordings during this time. So
And it's going to be even more because this one woman, she keeps messing up the time. So I don't know how long. I'll probably be going till midnight with her.
no,
Yeah.
it's
So
always a
it's,
joy.
what I also love, what I love about your story too is, you know, lives are filled with lots of stuff, and you need to know what matters to you.
Mhm.
You need to it's just simple boundaries, right? It's just simple, like it's kind of a question. I know that there was some question on your list of questions that had to do with that or made me think of that, like how do you set the boundaries between life, and so it actually, we just backed into a later question. So it's not a bad moment to talk about it, but I do think that um the people around you, if you can be clear about what your boundaries are, and so that everybody knows what to expect of you, and you're in charge of that, and they're signed off on that, then you're good. Like, you're good. Like, you need your family or your loved ones to be on board with, okay, this is the way that I need to work. Or, my husband knows, I like to spend a lot of time alone when I'm working on something because that's the way that I think. I'm going to pick up my kid. Obviously, I'm going to do everything that the family needs, but then I'm going to be not available.
Mhm.
When I can be not available, I'm going to be not available, and then everything arranges around that, and that's how everything stays healthy. And I was thinking about your question, and that head was in that kind of world, and that's why I think you have to be with people who are supportive.
Mhm.
you,
And
you
talking
have to.
about,
I don't know how you would do this profession if your mate is not supportive. I don't know how you do it.
yeah. And my question that made me think while you were also speaking is, have you ever had, like, I've experienced this where it's like you're not in the zone of necessarily working or that creative lane and you're doing something else and you're like, oh my God, light bulb, this is the direction or this is
Totally.
how do you handle that and communicate that? Because sometimes for me, it's just like, oh my God, I thought of this. Like, okay, I gotta tell someone, I gotta like get it out. And they're like, we're literally skiing down a mountain and you're starting to talk about this right now. Like, how do you kind of handle that?
Well, I love that. I mean, I think that's what it is to be a creative person. Not just an artist, a creative person, whatever you do, whether you're a homemaker or whatever you do, to do it in a creative way is to be available for the messages to come through, however they come through and whenever they come through. Every scientist, every person, every teacher, everybody has had moments where they go, oh, now I figured out how to handle that situation. And they're not in the middle of that situation. It's a really good thing to have, notes on your phone. I have to take notes all the time just to remind myself, because I'm having thoughts that I want to, it's like a to-do list. I have to have it written down, and my husband has ADD, and he used to say things like, oh, I forget that I have to do that, or I forget about that, or I get distracted. And at one point I realized that he thought that all the rest of us are holding this all in our heads. And I'm like, I'm not holding anything in my head. It's all written down. I have to look, if I don't look at my calendar, I get really messed up. And if I get distracted and I'm in a fitting like today and it goes 2 hours later, and things can change that I'm not on top of. But it was really amazing for me to realize, like, oh, the pressure that he's putting on himself is he thinks the rest of us are like walking around on top of everything, instead of, no, we just have the executive function to figure out what tools help us remember what we need to remember. That's a learned skill, right? It's like, what do I need to do my work? So let's say you have a brilliant idea and you're in the middle of, like, I don't even know how much that for instance, let's say you were talking to me about something that was really important to you. I'm probably not going to have a brilliant idea about something I'm doing, because that would mean I wasn't thinking about what you were saying and I wasn't present with what you were saying. But later, I might go, what's really interesting is when she was saying that, it made me think this. I think that fluidity and trust and instinct are more important than we even realize. The ability to go, it's okay if you forget it. When you're talking to people, we all have this, and we go like, oh, where was I thinking? What was I going to say? And to learn over time to go, it'll come back. It always comes back.
You'll hear always. Me mid-podcast episodes. Sometimes I'll be like, I'll try to keep it going for a second, like the question, and I'll be like, honestly, I had no idea what I was going to say next. So let's go down this direction. Oh, I'm like, I'll tell Ben, my producer, leave it in there. Like, it's just the flow.
Leave it in. Yeah.
It's the real moments. Like, that is what happens in real time. I do want to dive in, because I can't believe we're so far into this episode and we haven't even touched pieces of your career, which I also love, because so many times people get on, especially actors and celebrities and athletes, and it's like, okay, let's just focus on this piece of their career or that. And so I love that we're 30 minutes in, 40 minutes in, and we haven't even touched it. We've been talking about such amazing things. But I think we got to touch your amazing career.
Thank you.
And works that I also love. And to be honest, like, I'm going to be very transparent here. I reached out to Kathe's team just because I thought she was so fascinating in her journey. Not because I loved all the shows. And I was like, and when I reached out to her and I'd researched things about her prior, I was like, yeah, typically people reach out to me and I'm like, I have to reach out to her team. I gotta try to, because this is so interesting. And then when I was doing even more research, once you said yes, I was like, no wonder her image looks so familiar. These are literally all the shows I watch. And like, no joke, like 2 weeks ago, I couldn't even find what to watch on like Netflix, and The Closer is now on Netflix. And I was like, I mean, I've watched every episode 4 times, but like, let's start it over. It's been like a year since I watched it.
I love that so much.
So I want to touch upon that. I mean, you had an incredible 9-year run as DDA Andrea Hobbs on The Closer and Major Crimes. What was it like to essentially grow up with a character for nearly a decade?
it was heaven. I loved that character, and um, it was, I always felt like there was nothing that I couldn't include in that character, even though her lines didn't include anything about her personal life. You never knew anything other than how she felt about the case and what was going on. But there was so much that I felt was personal about her, because the way she saw the world was very specific, and you could always tell who she thought was not stepping up, who she liked, who she didn't. That wouldn't necessarily be in the lines ever, but it was just what happened. It was just like, if I looked and the way that actor was doing that part was annoying to me at that moment, not as an actor, but as like the character being a dick, then even if the next line I'm saying is, well, let me know later and I'll take a look at it, you say that differently if you think the person you're talking to is being a dick. So I felt like I was really the definition of success. I felt like I was freed up. I felt like I got to do what I wanted to do and that I did do it. And that was supposed to be one episode.
Really?
Yeah, that was a one episode job.
So how does going into that, what is it like going in thinking you're in for one episode, and then how does it transition to a regular on a show?
Well, we were giving a panel talk at one point, and Mike Robin, who's one of the producers and directors, who's a wonderful guy, and there was some question about that for me. And what he said, the truth is, in Kathe's situation, and this is possible for anybody, you go in to do what you think is a one episode thing, a simple thing, a lawyer, whatever. He goes, if you put your own English on it, the writers will get excited because they have somebody to write for. And in series television, where you're going to keep on going, they get really excited by personalities that they feel they can add to the mix. And maybe even not more so, but very specifically so, when it's a person who has to give a lot of facts, story, data, exposition. What a writer wants is for the exposition to sing. They don't want the exposition to seem like just a bunch of information. So when you watch Law and Order, or you watch any of these procedurals, any of these doctor shows, any of these cop shows, fireman shows, legal shows, you're watching somebody give exposition, you can tell when something happens to you where you're a little interested. You're interested in the personality that's delivering the information. And if you are going in on something like that, got to know the story you're telling. And that's the most important thing. If the story you're telling is she came in at midnight, she made a sandwich, and then she went to bed and I didn't see her after that, that's a story. But if you bring yourself to it, then the story is fun to watch be told, not just informational. And it seems really obvious, but it's actually not what happens. People kind of think they're just giving the facts, and you're never just giving the facts. You're part of a world. And when I got that audition, and it sticks in my mind because it was very specific, what happened was I thought, oh, I've never seen The Closer. Okay, better find an episode of The Closer. So I found one on YouTube or whatever was on at the time. And I'd never seen it. I knew who Kira was, but Kira's character in The Closer was not like Kira in real life. So I wouldn't have known just from knowing who she was what that character was. So I'm watching that character and I'm thinking, oh, okay. She is like a Southerner who's kind of ditzy and does things in an indirect way. So I'm going to be a very direct Northerner. And that is what I am, right? So instead of me like deciding to do something that's not, I went, okay, I know exactly what part of me can be helpful to this story. So when I went in there, it wasn't about, I hope I do a good job. It was, I actually know how I can be of use to this story. So I'm completely relaxed about whether or not I'm valuable or whatever, because I actually have something I can give here, which is a kind of directness, a kind of real braininess that her character's braininess was all covered in all sorts of wiles and femininity and all sorts of things she's doing with her braininess. And my braininess is on the table. I am not interested in going around things or wasting any kind of time. And I got no time for it. And so every day on that set was great. And they kept writing it, they kept writing my characters smarter and smarter in terms of the intelligence of the writing, because they would pick up more and more. And I remember I really liked doing those scenes with Mary McDonnell for Major Crimes. I loved the scenes where we would be alone, just the two of us, because something started to happen where I felt like we were connected to each other by being women of a certain age and by being women in positions of power and by dealing in very male environments, that there was an understanding between the characters of what they were dealing with. And the writers started to really write a friendship in there that wouldn't have been there if I'd had a different feeling about it. They would have written something different. They were really smart that way. And there was this one episode where the man she's in love with is in the hospital and he's had a heart attack. And the scene was kind of the showing us here up talking. But she took my hand below the frame because we had built some sort of a professional relationship. And you knew these two women did not get together outside of work, but they had built some kind of a relationship. And then the director took a shot and did it again so that he could get her hand taking mine. And then that ended up in the show. And you just go, that's the miracle. You know, if you bring your own humanity to something and your own humor and your own instincts, even if it goes against everything about what's on the page, there's nothing on the page that looked like Andrea Hobbs and her character should be holding hands. But that is what people do, is what our people did. That's what we did. And that's how you grow a character, you know, is this beautiful alchemy between who you are and who the writers start to see that you are. And I just loved it. I loved it. And then when something terrible happens to her character at the end of the series, the writers had all of us in a circle, sort of facing each other and dealing with something. And they wrote that my character turned her back. And I thought, that is so sensitive, because it wasn't the kind of person who was going to emote in front of everybody. And that just seemed like, was like so brilliant to me. It was like an actor's choice, you know, that they wrote that would be something that I might have come up with, but they wrote it anyway. And I just felt a lot of gratitude and a lot of love for that whole process. So that's a very, 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 very long answer to that question.
No, but it's a great answer. And also, I mean, I've a plethora of questions, but I feel like there's so much in there of what you just said. But I know we're getting towards the end of time, and there's definitely one question because I know you've had so many roles, you've done so many things. You do voice acting, you do audiobooks, and we haven't even touched upon that. And that's a whole nother thing I wish we had time to dive into. But as someone who's been on so many impactful shows where people really go and they watch and they get dialed into it and they keep watching, like myself, who've watched some of these shows plenty of time, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I want a good show. I don't know what to watch. I'll just rewatch this one because I know it's good. I know I'm going to be engaged with it. For you, you know, in in that time it was a TV regular. It's still, those shows still get shown on TV and get replayed. But have you found that there has been new life brought into the shows that you've been on because now they're getting on put on platforms like Netflix and these other places?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's fantastic. It's fantastic that people can see things you did 20 years ago. It's beautiful. I mean, for all of the ups and downs and pros and cons of the streaming world and all of it, it used to be you couldn't see these things, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, for example, we'll take Scrubs, which has rebooted itself. And
Right.
and that, you know, they said a big part of them bringing the full original cast back, and they're not trying to be like, oh, we're gonna pick up like the day after the show ended. It is
Yeah,
complete
yeah,
like
yeah.
the
As if those
20,
characters have been alive all this time and now we're
yeah,
just checking back in. Right.
which I have watched their season, and I will say I love how they strategically did that, where they said, and I've watched interviews with the cast where one of the characters was on a different show and they're like, if we're going to do this, we're doing it with the full cast, we're going to make sure everyone has it, but we're also making sure 20 years has passed, like,
Yeah.
and make and like what life would be like, what we actually look like, and all these things. But I've watched them in interviews where they go, being able to be on this platform and COVID hitting and this hitting and people having access to that kind of show gave us the ability to now do that. And I think, and I 100% want your opinion because you know way better than I do, it seems like a lot of these shows and characters not only are getting now put in front of new people, but it's bringing up new opportunities because now it's at the forefront again.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think in some cases that's got to be right, right? That it's finding my son's girlfriend is a big Grey's Anatomy fan. And she said to him the other day, "Oh, your grandma, your mother was on Grey's Anatomy." And he's never watched that. And she made him, like, they watched it together. And then he says, "I just realized I wasn't born yet when you did this." Like, his mind was like, oh my God, like, I'm actually looking at my mother from before I existed. And things like that are pretty interesting,
What is
about
that?
the work we do.
What is that like for you too? Like having your son look at things that you did before he was alive, after he's alive, and like being able to show that to him, if that makes sense.
It makes me feel really good. Like, you know, when you make something, if you make a painting, it lasts. If you write a book, it lasts. Um, what we've done has traditionally been very ephemeral. And theater is very ephemeral. And then TV used to be very ephemeral. You do it and it would show that night, and whoever wasn't home and didn't see it, that was it. And so it's given, I think, all of us um, a great feeling that we didn't know we would have, of that it's not ephemeral, but that the work we do can pop back up. And I always think it's funny, like if someone's watching TV and they see an episode of something that you're on, and then the next night they'll see an episode of something you did 10 years before. And to them, you're working all the time. You're like, yeah, that was 10 years apart. But that kind of convergence will happen, right? Where for some reason you're on TV all the time in that 1 week of that person's watching, just because of what they happened to watch. And I think that's great. And I also love seeing my friends and my colleagues, seeing them pop up. You watch a movie and you see, if you watch, can't remember what I was watching, but you can watch a movie and like there's young Harrison Ford in like one of his first jobs. There is something about knowing the way a person's career went and then getting to see them when they didn't even know how their career was going to go. And you're sitting there going, you're going to be really famous and you don't even know that yet. Like you're standing on a set somewhere saying these lines, and somewhere in the future, like time travel, I'm sitting in my room going, and you are now 70. And this is what happened to you. And I have more information about your life than you have at this moment. There's something very magical about the whole thing, I think.
It sounds very magical, and like it made me even think about my journey and some of my peers' journey. But the Harrison Ford thing, I will say this when you brought up him just now. I recently watched an interview because he's been on the show Shrinking, right? And I watched that show, and so something
He's
popped
great
up.
on it.
Oh my God, he is amazing.
He's great.
And like the humanity he brings to the character and every aspect. Anyway, so in one of the episodes, he starts humming. And so because I watched the show and this and that, Facebook listens, right? So in a group panel for the season that came out, they were talking about it and they had the whole cast on it. And Harrison Ford talks about, I forget what the question was asked, but he's like, yeah, in this moment, I started humming. And I don't know where where the rhythm came from, whatever. I guess someone asked about it, and he was like, yeah, I just started humming. It wasn't in the script. It wasn't anything. It just felt like doing it. And, I'm forgetting his name. He was on How I Met Your Mother, who's the main cast member.
Jason Segel.
Thank you. I'm like, I
hope that's his name, because otherwise I just said the wrong name.
It's okay. But he goes, you didn't know that was from Indiana Jones? He's like, and Harrison Ford goes, it was just in my brain, I guess. And I just hummed it. And the whole cast are like, that's so him and his character. But also, did you not remember, like, that is from that movie? And he's like, yeah, I guess it was just so long ago. It was just in my head that day, and I did it.
God.
And it just also shows, like, what you were saying, how moments transcend and how they stay with you, even subconsciously.
Yeah.
That being said, we are now over our hour, which I know. I'm like, there's so much more. But I try to be conscious of your time, so I can't keep you, even though I wish I could.
I'm here, so
yeah.
If do you have another question? If you have another question, you can ask it. But if you want to wrap up, you can wrap up.
I think my other question for you would be, now also being in the voice acting space, how has that changed? Has it changed how you show up or how you prep?
Audiobooks changed my life. They changed everything about my life. I am an audiobook narrator, so I don't do voice work. I mean, I have, but really I'm an audiobook narrator. And I fell into it. I didn't somebody suggested I audition. This was in 2001 or whatever. Somebody said, "Oh, I'm going to audition. You should come and audition." It never occurred to me that anybody would want to listen to my voice for 12 hours in their car. That seemed like punishment to me. I could not ever have thought that up. But what I learned from doing audiobooks is you're in a room. You have 50 characters you have to play. You've got 400 pages you have to do. You do not have the time to go up in your head. You do not have the time to be hard on yourself. You do not have the time to go, "Oh, I think I did that wrong. Let me keep doing it till I get it right." And as a result, what I learned was you're going to have to trust your instincts in the most aggressive way that you ever have. And if you do something wrong, you're going to have to go, "Well, that was bad," and move on, and do not be hard on yourself. And during the process of going from not doing audiobooks to doing audiobooks, I became a person who took myself less seriously, who stopped being hard on myself. I thought, I'm choosing all these voices. I'm choosing 50 characters. I'm telling this story from exactly the way I think this story needs to be told. I don't have the ability to do that while I'm beating myself up. And I thought, sometimes you take a page of dialogue and you beat yourself to death about how to do it right. And that's not necessary. You can actually do it just as well by not beating yourself to death. And what happens is that something effortless started to happen for me, that I'll start to work too hard, I'll start to over effort, and then I have to remind myself of what I can do with my hands held behind my back, or just what comes out of my mind is fine. And it's not about shrinking, and it's not about puffing up. It's just being present and doing the thing. And I think that changed everything. And I remember my favorite boss was a guy named Dan Musselman at Penguin Random House. It used to be, first it was Random House, and before that it was Books on Tape. And he said to me once, years in to working together, he said, "Well, you make it easy and you make it good." And I thought, oh, nobody ever would have called me easy in the first 25 years of my life or whatever. I wasn't easy. I thought that I was never doing well enough or good enough, or that it couldn't possibly be that easy. There must be something more that I have to do. And so I was intense. And now I think, well, I'm intense. I mean, I'm a very high voltage person, but I'm not over efforting, and I'm not making life miserable, hopefully, for the people I work with by taking myself too seriously, or demanding that I be taken, whatever. I was just so hard on myself. And I think we all just have to learn it wherever we learn it. I certainly, a minute before, could not have guessed I was going to learn that from doing audiobooks. I couldn't have planned that in a million years. But that changed everything about my self-image. It made me trust myself and have fun, have a lot of fun, and make fun of myself. I mean, there are whole books I did that I was like, well, I could have done, that was not that great, and what helped me was the people producing those books didn't have a problem with it. Mm-hmm. So then I'd go like, okay, I didn't think that was that great, but they thought it was fine. There's a the parenting concept, good enough, mm-hmm. Or I had a mommy and me teacher who used to talk about, when food drops on the ground, and you pick it up and she goes, clean enough. clean enough, good enough. And you don't, that perfectionism is just, it's awful for people, for themselves. It's awful to be around. And I'm not talking about the perfectionism of people who know exactly the way they want things done and they are the creators. I love that. That's not, I don't call that perfectionism. That's just very, very strong vision and a person wanting to deliver on that vision. And if Bruce Springsteen needs to spend, a month doing Born to Run, if he comes up with Born to Run at the end of it, great. But I'm talking about the kind of beating yourself up or perfectionism that doesn't make better work. It's just a psychological problem. It's not an artistic vision. If that makes sense.
Oh, it does. And I think it's some like that insight right there and that reflection is why it's so important to allow yourself the time to breathe and go into new stages of life and continue down the path because it's all meant to shape us. It's all meant to improve who we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to be and teach us lessons that we didn't even know we needed or wanted. And that being said, thank you, Kathe, for all of your insight today. And it has been a pure joy to have you.
Well, thank you for having me. Same for me.
And a few of our key takeaways from today's conversation, though there was more than this, let me promise you that. And I just was too hooked in to what Kathe was saying to the points. I was like, oh, I really needed to write that down, but I was just so hooked. But
it's been recorded actually.
Yeah, so you can listen to the whole thing. This is not a problem. Is you have a good day when you are creating a good day. So what I mean by that is Kathe talked about this in the beginning, but I really think it's a theme of the whole conversation is how are you showing up? And then how are you tethering to that as well? One of the things she brought up is being able to laugh off the reviews you get from someone. I think whether you're in the acting space, and I love how she brought that up and she started implementing that because in today's society, social media and how quick it is for people to comment something positively, negatively in any of your spaces. And sometimes it's really hard to not take it personally. But as she said, when you know yourself, you know your work, and you know, like, this is just what it is, and you don't give it the weight and the power, you are then able to create what you want to create in life, in business, in acting, wherever it might be. As well as if you can have clear boundaries and communicate that, and the other people around you, whether it's one person or 10, have signed off on that, then all is good. And I think that was so important as well, because so many times, especially in recent years, boundary has been used, I think, to some level as a buzzword. Oh, I'm setting this boundaries.
Yes.
And it is really something that needs to be intentional, but needs to also be communicated. So I think it was so important that Kathe also brought up the fact of like the other people have to be sign off on it. You have to, which highlights you have to communicate it. You all have to be on the same page with it. And it's so important because we can all say, well, I have a boundary on this. But did you communicate it? Did you hold a standard to it? Did you then say, here's the consequences if that is disrespected? And did the other person go, okay, I hear you? I mean, there's times I remember saying it to someone myself, and this literally popped in my head. I never do this during a key takeaway. But I sold someone the boundary, and they're like, okay, like, oh, well. And I was like, okay, well, now I know how to proceed forward. And so
right.
when someone doesn't agree to that boundary, understanding they're not going to agree with it, and take that in and know what that shows you as well as to do things in a creative way. You have to be open to accepting that, as Kathe talked about, and we kind of sometimes the juices are flowing. You have to be open to it. You have to embrace it and know that those moments can come and they can flow, as well as you're not always just giving facts. This came across when Kathe talked about, her journey as DDA Andrea Hobbs and how she presented it and how she looked at that character and those roles. I think that's so true, but I think that's also so true in our lives. We have to remember how we're communicating. How are we showing this information? How are we delivering it? Because that makes such as much of an impact to others than the words you're saying. This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, actress Kathe Mazur. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.